You may know Yeat from his famous albums like Lyfe and Afterlyfe. What you may not know about Yeat is that recently he just released a new album called 2093. And from the looks of it, it's getting pretty mixed reviews. And what I mean by this is most people like it. You know, most people find it enjoyable, find it, you know, very, very new and inventive for, you know, Yeat standards.
I like Frosted Flakes.
Some people, specifically like reaction YouTubers and people who liked Yeat's old sound, really just hate this album for some reason. They don't like it. And in my opinion, it's probably one of Yeat's like best albums. Actually, no, it is Yeat's best album, without a doubt, easily. But why is that? "2093" was released this February 2024, and the initial reception was it's okay. Now, some people really like this album, like what comes to mind, Anthony Fantano. Some reaction streamers liked it, but I mean, just look at these clips.
I don't think I'm gonna do a whole album review because I don't really bump Yeat like this. So
Wow, this album is amazing.
Surely, this album can't be that polarizing to the point where half the audience hates it and the other half loves it. So I listened to the whole entire thing, and I'm gonna tell you what I think. Spoiler alert, I think the album's great. Some quick backstory for me though, I was never really like a big fan of Yeat. I've always listened to his like popular songs that I thought were really good, but in my eyes, he was just okay. He had a unique style, sure, but he never really just went off the deep end with that unique style. I always thought he was missing just this specific element of creativity with his music. It just felt like ordinary rap music in my opinion. So when I heard 2093, I really thought it was great because of the unique sci-fi angle that he took on this album. It's really good actually. 2093, the Phase 2 edition, has 24 songs with Lil Wayne, Future, and Drake featuring on 3 of the tracks. This is probably one of the last times you will ever see Future and Drake on the same album, so cherish that for a minute. But going back to what I was saying, listening to this like album 2093, it really just like reshaped the way I think about Yeat as a rapper, and I actually like underestimated him. I thought, okay, 2093, this is gonna be kind of trash. This is gonna be like repetitive music, repetitive synths, repetitive everything. But looking through all the tracks and listening through all the tracks, it was a really fresh music that had a very unique standpoint. And even though the lyrics didn't mean that much, I really did like a lot of the songs on this album. So let's talk about that in depth.
If you had a time machine, what would you do?
I don't know. I'll go to the future.
Starting off with track 1, Psycho CEO. It was a lot more grand in scale than I thought it was going to be. I didn't expect the album to take such a shift towards sci-fi. Once I heard it, I realized like this is not like average Yeat music. It's so different, and I love it for that. Psycho CEO is a really great, strong start to this album, and I think the lyrics hit really hard in parallel with the beat. Some people say the beat carries. I don't think that's necessarily true. I just think Yeat's vocals just kind of took a background to just the grandness of the beat in track 1. So I'm gonna say Psycho CEO is an 8.5 out of 10. Very good. Track 2, Power Trip. Power Trip was really it kind of threw me off a little bit because I expected it to just go straight into the heat, but then you get this cool piano stuff, and it does sound good. I just didn't expect it. The beat switch halfway through, yeah, it was a little bit abrupt, but I didn't think it was out of place. I think it matches pretty nicely with the overall theme of the song, and I think this track is a 7.5 out of 10. Breathe is one of the really big tracks off this album. I think it's one of his most popular like songs right now. It samples The Regular Show, which is really all I knew about it going in, but yes, it does sound really good, you know, with the ad-libs, Breathe going in, acting as double entendres without actually saying any of the lyrics. Really creative wordplay too, coming from Yeat. I will never give you time to, and then the ad-lib kicks in and it's Breathe. I think that was really creative. It's kind of like one of those common rap tropes where you don't really finish this. I really thought that was creative coming from Yeat. you know? It surprised me, and I really do like this track a lot. It's one of my favorites off the album. I think this is a 9 out of 10. Really, really good. Okay, More just hits hard in a different way. I think, like, once the verse kicks in on More, it's like one of the best tracks on the album. Probably not as good as Breathe, but I do think More could stand alone as a single or be one of the best tracks off his older albums. I think More is an 8.5 out of 10. Very, very good. Bought the Earth kind of falls into the background for me a little bit. I don't really listen to this track as much as all the other ones. It's a lot slower. It does have a lot of nice synths in the background. I just think it's not as memorable as all the other tracks. I mean, even right now, I can't even think of lyrics because it's just background noise to me. But that doesn't say that I necessarily dislike this track. I just think it's kind of boring. I think this track is a 6 out of 10. So far, we're around like a sixth of the way through the album, and I really like all of these tracks for the most part. I think this was a great way to start off the album, especially an album this long with 24 tracks. Like, seriously, I don't even know how he had this much time in between Afterlyfe and 2093 to come up with this many tracks. Usually, albums take years to make, and he just released a 24-song album that's actually really, really consistent and good. So, bonus points for that. Track 6, Nothing Change. I really like the instrumental on this track. It's very unique. I really like just how simple it is, contrasting with like Yeat's vocals and rapping and singing. I think it's really, really nice. This is just something that's, you know, pretty like aux safe. Play this in the car with some friends. It doesn't really talk about anything in depth. The lyrics are just kind of, you know, there, but I think it pairs really nicely with the instrumental. So I think this track is a 7.5 out of 10. I'm gonna be light on As We Speak because we all know about the Kendrick and Drake beef as of right now, and I actually wanted to wait on this video and see how this would play out before I gave my opinions on this specific song. And my conclusion is it's a 7 out of 10. Yes, Yeat's part was good. Yes, Drake's part was okay, but man, I can't give a song with Drake on it more than a 7 out of 10 at this point in time. Can you understand where I'm coming from? Like, potentially, allegedly, the guy likes kids. I'm not touching that song, all right? Next song, please. Next track. You Should Know. A really, really great track in my opinion. One of the best tracks on this album by far. I think it's the best track on this album. It's amazing. Just the arpeggiated synth mixing with Yeat's vocals, this hard-hitting bass with this hard-hitting beat, and these droning synths that change in pitch throughout the background. It really just fits the theme of this album perfectly. I think this is one of the defining songs that is heavily underrated, and everybody needs to listen to this song because it's the most underrated song for how good it is. You Should Know, in my opinion, is a 9.5 out of 10. Let's fucking go. I love that track. Now, Lifestyle. Coming off of You Should Know, Lifestyle is almost as good. Incredible. The Lil Wayne feature goes so hard with this type of beat. And in my opinion, every single time Lil Wayne features on a song, he always overshadows the other artists. Like, for instance, Hot Wind Blows. Lil Wayne literally just like stole the show immediately, and he stole it from Tyler, the Creator of all people, which in my opinion is gotta be incredibly difficult. But Lil Wayne seems to effortlessly flow into this track with little to no effort, even though some of the lyrics didn't really make sense. I'm gonna give him the pass on that because he's known for lyrics that don't make sense. Like, bitch, real G's move in silence like lasagna. Oh, the G's silent. Go fuck yourself. I'm gonna give this track an 8.5 out of 10. Now, this is one of the most popular songs in the album. I'm not sure if it's my favorite. I love Sample's Crystal Castles of all people, which coming from Yeat, I would never really expect. But man, I do love this track. As kind of repetitive as it is, I do like the sample mixing with this heavy bass and heavy drums. I think it really suits the vibe of the album really, really well, and it fits nicely in between all these tracks. I think this track is a 8 out of 10. Like some of these streamers said, Tell Me is probably one of the darker tracks on this album because he's like, I love hell. I love hell.
What?
Gangster.
Yeah, but besides that, Tell Me is really, really on the more creative side with these synths, and I really like the creativeness that Yeat's coming with, that Yeat's like spitting with this track. You know, the producer must have been getting paid overtime. This is amazing. Now, the lyrics, probably don't vibe with them the most because it's like, oh, drugs are bad, you know? He's not really saying much, which I can agree with most streamers. He's not really saying much. But nevertheless, seeing someone like Yeat come out with a track like this that has so much atmosphere, so much space, so much like intensity with the song structure, it's really, really refreshing to see someone like Yeat do that kind of shit. So I think this track is also an 8 out of 10. Very, very good. Very nice, very nice. Yes, I am willing to give some leniency on Yeat, mainly because this album is so different, you know? I was willing to give Quadeca some leniency when he went from Me to You to I Didn't Mean to Haunt You, because that was such a dramatic shift, and I feel like this should be no different. Shade's one of those more like slow, like head-bopping tracks until you get to the halfway mark, and it really just picks up speed. He's like,
I'm in the whole world, my bitch.
and it just hits so hard. I love Shade. Very great song. 8.5 out of 10 in my opinion. Let's just get straight to the next track because Shade needs no more explanation. Okay, Never Quit is another track off the deluxe part or phase 2, so it's a bonus track just like the one with Drake. I like the distorted guitar in the background. It's very simple, but it's very atmospheric too. It also fits with the theme of the album, which I really like. But overall, there's nothing too special. It's just kind of another track that falls into play with the album. I think this is a 7.5 out of 10. Okay, after all that, we're roughly, I'd say give or take 2 or 3 songs at the halfway mark. And I really do like this album. Yes, there are some songs you could just cut off, trim off because they just kind of fall into the background. But besides that, you keep all the hard hitters. This album would be a 10 out of 10 in my eyes. It's just there's a lot of filler that needs to be addressed so far. And I don't think it's going to get any better. But the tracks themselves are really nice. Good to listen to. Vibey, atmospheric, special, unique. Keep Pushing is a really, really good track. And it ends off with this repetitive riot, riot, riot. And at the end of the track, it sounds more like he's saying rice than riot, which I think is kind of funny. It takes me off the theme of the track a little bit, but that beginning synth just is so good. It kind of makes up for it a bit. So I think this track is a 6.5 out of 10. Okay, Riot and Set It Off is another great track with that riot ad-lib going on in the background. It really just sets the theme. Really, really intense theme with really, really intense lyrics. Very, very great, like heavy synth in the background that layers nicely with the bass and the drums. I really can't explain much more because it is a simple, verse, 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 bridge, verse, instead of like a verse, chorus, verse, you know what I mean. It's kind of repetitive, so I'm gonna give this a 6.5 out of 10 again. Nice. It's good. All right, Team CEO, I'd say, is the most underrated track off this whole entire album. I don't think people understand just how good that beginning like sequence sounds. Like, it sounds too good in my opinion. It almost threw me off how good that sounds. It sounds so creative, layered with the drums and the background instrumentals. It really pairs nicely with Yeat's voice too. I think Team CEO is probably one of the best tracks on this album, specifically for how underrated it is. People do not like this track. This is like one of the tracks people dislike heavily. And I think it's one of actually the best tracks on this album. I think this is a 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10. Now, I'm gonna agree with Fantano. 2093 falls into the background. It's boring, especially for it being the title track. It's okay. It's okay. I think it's boring, and we're just gonna move on. It's a 5 out of 10. That's the lowest it's gonna go for this album. 2093, the lowest track on 2093 is a 5, which is average. All right. Yeat, don't be ashamed about having an average track. I mean, most people are average. Don't feel ashamed about being average. Stand on It, really good Future verse. It's kind of like breaking the fourth wall a little bit. I like these lyrics. Just some cool, hard-hitting that you play in the car. Play that shit in the car. And it's really, really good. Again, though, I don't want to repeat myself because this whole album is kind of repetitive a little bit. I've said these words before, and I've said them for the previous track and the previous track and the previous track and the previous track because they all kind of just blend into this similar like state. And as unique as the album itself is, I don't think the tracks are that unique or dissimilar from each other. So I think this track is a 7 out of 10. It's all right. I just wish it was a little bit more unique in the context of the album itself. Same thing goes for Familia. At this point in time, I've listened to 18 tracks. I want something new. I want something different. Familia is just another thing. And at this point, it's losing me. This album's losing me. I'm going to give this one a 6.5 out of 10. As much as I do like the droning vocals and the synths in the background with the drums and the bass, how much more drum and bass can you get before you get bored, I think this song's kind of boring. 6.5 out of 10. Mr. In Between It. This is almost as bad as 2093, and I think the only difference is that the instrumental just goes a little bit harder. It's a 5.5 out of 10. I don't even want to talk about it because it's just the same as every other track. The only difference is it's a little bit more repetitive. But trust me, the album does not end off like this. We end off with some pretty heat tracks, some amazing tracks at the end. But Mr. In Between It is probably, the second lowest you can go for this album. I wouldn't listen to it. 5.5 out of 10. Psycho Kane, again, a little bit similar to the other tracks, but I do like how this one has, different flows, different cadences from Yeat, a little bit more unique and a little bit more fresh in my eyes. It just hits that much harder. So I think I'm gonna bump this one up to 7.5 out of 10. I do like Psycho Kane, specifically for it being that late in the album and that creative. I think he's still pushing boundaries in a way. Yeat as a professional rapper, 2093 was his opportunity to evolve in a way and morph into something, greater as an entity of art, He's making all this music and he changed into this different, style, specifically to do something greater. He's not doing it for money, clearly. This album is probably one of his worst performing albums besides his first ever, 2 albums. I forgot what they're called. Don't ask me. Clearly, he's obviously doing this for himself because who would want to make just the same music all over again? And I think this album is really, really good because it's just new. I think this song is a 7.5 out of 10. Run Thy Mouth has a really, really interesting synth in the background, just really high-pitched, going down, droning, just matches with Yeat's flow really, really well. The bass and the drums come in, and they're all right, the normal Yeat signature hard-hitting bass, bass so hard I could barely listen to it on my earbuds, and drums that just are basically just tempo markers. Besides that, Run Thy Mouth is a really, really good track, 8 out of 10. It doesn't feel repetitive like all the other tracks. I think it's a really good, fresh, track for you to listen to if you're gonna listen to this album from front to back. Run Thy Mouth is really refreshing. If We Being Real is probably my second favorite. No, scratch that. It's my favorite track off this whole album. Yes, I know I said that You Should Know is one of my favorite tracks, but this is better. All right, this vibrant, unique ambience comes into the song, and the beat comes in, and Yeat's ad-libs and vocals are pitched up, harmonizing with Yeat and Yeat's raps, and the drums and bass just hit perfectly. I genuinely think this track is at a 9.8. This track's amazing. This track is amazing, specifically for it being so late in the album, and it's hitting that hard. All right, You Should Know is great, and Lifestyle with Lil Wayne is great, and I love those tracks. But If We Being Real just hits so much harder, specifically because it's Yeat acknowledging that he's doing something different, and he's actually doing something different. It's different from all of his other tracks. It's different from all of his other albums. It's very unique, and I love it. 9.8 out of 10. The only reason why it's not a 10 out of 10 is because I just can't bring myself to do it yet. I gotta see Yeat improve just a little bit more before I can give one of his tracks a 10 out of 10, let alone his album a 10 out of 10. I gotta see some more improvement. 1093 slows things down right at the end for this just normal Yeat song with sci-fi hints at the end. At the very end, there's this cool synth solo that just abruptly stops and the album repeats itself. And I think it's actually pretty good creatively. It fits into the album nice. I would like it more to end off with If We Being Real, but this song does fit nicely into the album, but I would personally cut it off as filler. I think this is a 6 out of 10 track to end it off. Yeah, and ending off this album, we had some really, really great tracks to contrast with the middle. The middle, we had kind of a drought with tracks. I feel like some tracks could have been cut out for filler, but there's not really much else you could do. I would say 2093 and Mr. In Between It, just not good. Not good tracks. Don't like them. But everything else, it's worth your time. It's very much worth your time. I think this album as a whole is very, very unique for Yeat. It's a very good step in the right direction, and I don't see why people dislike it that much. I get that I have a more unique taste in music. I like quadeca, I like hyperpop stuff, I like punk and stuff and all this experimental stuff. I love death grips, stuff like that. So when I hear something unique synth-wise, it doesn't really phase me that much. You really gotta hit me with some fucking demon pulse for me to this shit's ass. But apparently for normies, all it takes for them to get weirded out is a synth that is more unique than a basic saw wave that you'd hear in N95 by Kendrick Lamar. I think this album is really, really creative. It's really unique, and in my opinion, it's an 8.5 out of 10. Really, really good, but you gotta cut off some of that filler. I think the only thing holding this album back is just the sheer amount of filler. But besides that, this is probably one of the best steps for Yeat in the right direction. I think this kid's definitely going places. Now, getting all of that out of the way, going back to what I said in the beginning, is Yeat underrated? And in my opinion, yes, heavily. As famous as he is, he's not getting the recognition he deserves for this album 2093. I don't think it even makes sense for him to get this much hate for an album that I think is so good. And I get it, people have different music tastes, people are allowed to enjoy what they want to enjoy, but you can't look me in the eyes and say that Team CEO's instrumental doesn't go hard, because it does. Don't even, all right? Yes, Yeat is underrated, just like Denzel Curry, and they both need to get more traction. Once Denzel Curry drops again, I'm definitely going to be talking about him because he's also underrated just for how popular he is. He's still underrated, but both these artists do a great job at the music they make and the message they try to convey. Especially now that we know that Yeat is getting into this more artsy stuff, I'm glad to say that I'm a big Yeat fan. I can no longer hide in silence saying I'm a Yeat fan without getting bullied, because Yeat truly is one of the rap goats right now. I would even go as far as to say, as right now, it's a slight contender for rap album of the year. Yes, I know it's an 8.5 out of 10, but there's no other rap albums that have been dropped recently that really just have surprised me. I have listened to We Don't Trust You and We Still Don't Trust You, but there's only like 4 songs off that album that really just like want me to like listen to it, that are like worth my time. So Yeat's 2093 is definitely a contender for album of the year. Rap album of the year by default. Rap album of the year by default. But be sure to stay tuned for June, where I cover every single album I've reviewed so far and where they like fall on this list for 2024, and predictions of what albums just may come out that we will all listen to in 2024. And with all that, I'm just another music critic. Yeat, 5 ever. Also, before this video ends, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Like I said in the beginning, 40 subscribers away from getting super fans unlocked. Do you have any idea how just depressing that is, to be 40 subscribers away from potentially getting money? I know there's people on the internet who watch all my videos from front to back. I know they want to be super fans. There's 40 subscribers left until we can unlock that. I almost have the watch time. The watch time isn't something I'm worrying about. This video is gonna be 20 minutes long anyway. But if you subscribe, I will make super fans such a goated tier to have. You would love to become a super fan. I don't even know how much it costs. I don't even know what perks it offers. But if you become a super fan, you're not gonna regret it. All right? There's gonna be exclusive videos, exclusive content. All you gotta do is get me to 500 subscribers, watch my videos on repeat until I have the watch time, and then pay the $4 a month, or pay the $40 a month. I'm just another music critic. I'll see you guys later. Yeat, 5 ever.